Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you for the Strategy presented and Dell Technologies sponsored webinar, aptly titled Unified Workspace Solutions Where Safety Matters, from here to the secure modern workspace. It's important for each of us to realize that the world as we know it has dramatically changed. And while it has changed, it has also brought out new facets and nuances that we will only be able to look at with a certain level and a sense of uncertainty as we progress along. And with that, allow me to share my screen with you because I have a few interesting slides that I'm going to kind of walk you through over the next 10 or 15 minutes. The fact that the world has changed shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. Why does one say that? One says that for the simple reason that data points that are available in the public domain, as well as some research that we as analysts conduct, bring out this facet very, very clearly. While I'm not going to read out each of the data points to you, I think it should suffice to say that about 10 or 15 years from now, perhaps earlier, and that is, of course, something that time will tell, a lot of the jobs that we've taken for granted today, a lot of the skills that we've taken for granted today, perhaps will not exist. The World Economic Forum says clearly that 65% of children now entering primary schools will hold jobs that currently don't exist, which essentially means that new jobs, new profiles, and new skills will have to be built into industry scenarios for us to be able to address the challenges and, very importantly, the opportunities of the future. So it's not just the challenges that one should constantly look at, but equally the opportunities that exist. Now, with an increased use of technology within industry today, which is only expected to bloom in the days, weeks, months, and years to come, it is therefore of no surprise that the whole concept of the workforce by itself is also changing. The concept of work is also changing, which essentially means that organizations and enterprises such as the ones that you yourselves lead and are a part of are necessarily going to be mandated to put the employee or the contractor or the worker at the center of everything in terms of transformation that you will undertake. Because increasingly, some of our own research, Strategic Insights, for example, realized during a recent research that 54% of employees have a higher expectation of experience from their employers than about a year ago. And perhaps this is all the more ironical because the last 70 odd days that India has gone through a certain lockdown and a remote workforce of sorts has taken place, those concepts have changed. Importantly, it's also equally interesting to note that organizations that focus on cultural and technological experiences for employees reported a 4-time profit margin increase and a 2-time average revenue increase. Now, when you kind of boil all of this down, what it brings you to is the fact that the potential and the impact of technology can no longer be highlighted anymore. And it is for organizations as a whole to be able to embrace technology for all that it's worth, to drive superior experiences and, very, very importantly, strategic business outcomes. Because that, I think, is the truth of the matter. One of our surveys that we conducted recently of about 335 very senior industry leaders across large businesses brought out a very interesting aspect. It brought out the fact that, and we, of course, went to not just the technology folks, but we also went to the finance and the human resource folks, where it really came out very, very interestingly that when it came to unified or digitized workspaces, 76% of the respondents were strongly convinced that digital and unified workspaces will increase and enhance cost optimization and build increased competitiveness within the organization to be able to lead a sense of disruption and differentiation in the market. 53% respondents felt that IT personal productivity, something that's very, very important to each of you as you're listening in to me, will increase with endpoint modernization. Now, the humble workstation, as we always used to call it, is no longer humble. It is perhaps the most important asset, a physical asset, that anybody will ever commandeer to drive transformation at an enterprise and industry-wide level. And last but not the least, at least 1 in 4 business leaders agree and are confident that they will create unified and digitized workspaces within the next 6 months with significant amounts of money and fiscal investments allocated to it. Now, the whole question really is, why is it imperative to digitize and unify workspaces really? The answer isn't as simple as it were to be. And I'm going to walk you through a small journey. If you look at this graph and you look at the two hyperboles that are, well, one of them is not shifting, the other is, you will find that the whole concept of technology adoption within enterprises is fairly static. While it is not just that much, it is also the traditional cultural mindsets do not seem to have dramatically shifted themselves to be able to cater to a new generation, a new breed of employees, customers, workers, and partners. Because what's really happening, if you actually kind of look at it, is that for employees, experience and convenience today matters. In their ability to be productive, employees today want to feel a sense of satisfaction about what they have achieved at their own freedom. For customers, the importance is security and data security. And last but not the least, for the enterprises by themselves, which is each of you who are listening in and tuning in today, it is about how we could enhance productivity to drive incremental business outcomes. Now, what really is happening, if you kind of look at it in this specific graph, is that traditional mindsets and an approach or a traditional archaic approach to technology continues to remain static while everything else is moving forward, which fundamentally means that there is a widening gap between the employee, customer, partner expectations and experiences that are leading to a point where industries and enterprises by themselves are also getting disrupted because they are unable to bridge the gap between experience, productivity, and business continuity at one end with the levels of archaic, unified, or digitized workspace constraints that they have perhaps, which fundamentally boils down to the fact that the whole concept of the future of work has to be embraced at such an aspect, at such a dimension and level, that it has to seamlessly move with the employee at the center of the universe, really, if one may be able to look at it that way, which is why it is my constant advice, recommendation, and refrain to industry leaders that I am fairly in touch with, the ones that I constantly speak to, is the imperative really is to move away from the hype of technology to actual delivery at scale. Because that is what is going to get you the business outcomes that the future is going to demand. That is what is going to get you the business outcomes that your future customers are going to be expecting. And that really, when you boil it down, is going to be tantamount to you and each of you being able to acknowledge and accept that your static business, employee engagement, and digitization of the workspace by itself models will have to be disrupted. And if I were to be able to put it very interestingly, you will, each of you, will have to look at a blurring of the physical and the digital to actually lead to experience at scale with technology at its core. And while I'm at that, is this journey going to be simple? Is it going to be easy? No, it's not. It is a complex journey, which is why we must be thankful and grateful that we don't have to do it ourselves, because we have service providers and subject matter experts who will come in and do it for each of us. And what will service providers and subject matter experts come and do for us, interestingly, is take away our problem and make it their own. And in the process, will free up more time for each of you in the IT and the non-IT fields to focus on strategic imperatives and priorities for your organization, so that you can focus on the next innovation, so that you can focus on the next data-fueled products and services, so that you can focus on time to market, so that you can focus on differentiation and disruption. They will help you decompose the value chain by creating an ecosystem of trust and experience. With Dell Technologies, that is our sponsoring partner today, with Unified Workspace Solutions, they will classically come in and take away all your problems of procurement of laptops and endpoints, provisioning, support, And the last but not the least, by any measure, trust and safety and security, because they will allow you to finally blur, like I said a short while back, blur the lines between the physical and the digital, to be able to transform your organization, to be able to craft frictionless journeys and deliver finally what is most important to your customers, your employees, and your partners, which is authentic, immersive experiences. And last but not the least, let the subject matter experts kind of come in and figure out how they can learn, prevent, capture, analyze, and respond to threats and security challenges. So that you finally, if I were to be able to put it that way, can free up more of your time to look at strategic objectives, imperatives, and priorities that will help and assist you in crafting transformational journeys and ride the wave of growth. Gentlemen and ladies, that was Arjun Vishwanathan. It was a pleasure speaking to you on this keynote. Stay tuned in. We have very, very exciting segments coming up, and we are going to be with you over the next 90 minutes. Thank you so very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to welcome you to our webinar sponsored by Dell Technologies, aptly titled Where Safety Matters, From Here to the Secure Modern Workspace. My name is Arjun Vishwanathan, and I'm the Chief Research Officer at Strategic. And I am going to be in a very, very interesting set of conversations and dialogues with two very, very eminent industry leaders and IT and security professionals. Please join me in welcoming, and in no specific order, Amit Dhawan, Chief Information Security Officer and Data Protection Officer at BirlaSoft. Amit, thank you for joining us. It's a privilege, really. And Rishi Rajpal, Vice President Global Security for Concentrix. Rishi, pleasure to have you here. Gentlemen, now with your permission, if I may be allowed to set the context in what are really fairly uncertain and disrupted times, and however cliche that might sound, the truth really is that trusted devices enable trusted data. And by that measure, trusted devices can only be orchestrated in trusted workspaces. In a global enterprise scenario that is perennially vulnerable to threats and attacks, organizations are realizing that the need of the hour is for solutions that provide for robust automated threat prevention, detection, and response capabilities. And altogether, modern work demands an equally modern approach to protecting the endpoint and the end user fundamentally. Solutions that ensure artificial intelligence and machine learning infused threat detection and prevention are the clear mandates as it looks for Indian industry to start with. The need of the hour, therefore, is a continuous and adaptive automated digital workspace monitoring and alerting capability. This is the kind of a head start that organizations, in our collective view, perhaps require to effectively give them the confidence that endpoints and applications are safe, especially when they are remotely based. Uh, which therefore brings me, and Amit, if I may kindly come to you directly, sir, is the last 60, 65 days have seen Indian industry in a state of lockdown at various levels, predominantly in the whole concept of a workforce that has been, well, forced to work agnostic of space and time, really. Now, in that kind of a scenario, and in your experience as Chief Information Security and Data Protection roles that you have essayed and that you are currently, how does that kind of change the entire landscape?
That's a very interesting question. The change is actually not in the work. The change is not in how we are, managing security. The change is the landscape itself has changed, and that is the landscape of how we are doing business, or that is getting a change. So there is a change in the ecosystem. There is a change in how activities are being performed with a lot of people roaming outside. Uh, it goes to the basic principle, and that is what probably your theme is, managing digital trust. You know, so data, yes, it is floating around, and it has just increased the boundaries, and it is going beyond the scope that we had presumed. So to be maintaining trust, we need to go back to the basic principles of security. A lot of things need to change going forward. Maybe the regulators need to change. Maybe the way we're looking at data transitioning different places needs to change. So all those things are being considered, and the way we are looking at security and managing security. So a lot of on-prem tools just go out
Yes.
of the window.
Yes.
Mobile and cloud are the two big things, which are emerging. And to be on a lighter note, there are cartoons which are asking, what is causing digital transformation, and people are saying it is COVID. So on those terms, the monitoring is changing. Uh, the assurance that we need to provide to the customer is becoming a little tricky, but still, being done on that way. So overall, there is a change and there is not a change.
Okay.
It is more of a mindset, but technically, I don't think there is too much of change. But yes, the transitions of technology to mobility and cloud will bring those additional list of controls that we need to put in place.
Very, very, very well articulated. Rishi, if I may come to you with the same one. Amit spoke about a mindset change. Now, along with the mindset change, what's also been affected, perhaps unnaturally, is a necessary culture change. Now, how is that kind of inflected with your ability to drive safety and digital trust across endpoints, really?
Yeah, and thanks, Arjun. And I'll just build upon where Amit left, right? So in security, we are talking about terms like zero trust, right? Which is like, uh, I really don't trust anyone. And considering that I've been working with ITS sector for so long, uh, I've been so accustomed to work with bricks and mortars.
Hmm.
And what I can feel, touch in my office, I always feel secure. And suddenly I see people moving out in their homes. And I mean, it makes me feel insecure. Now, uh, having said that, do you have technologies in place which can ensure zero trust? The answer is yes. And I think that's the principle of when we say work at home model. And when we initially started this in our organization, security was paramount, right? So it was like, it was not just people will work from home, whether with their desktops or laptops. Uh, if the location has changed, do we get the same visibility on the endpoints as we were getting in bricks and mortars? Now, the major shift that we have seen moving from on-prem to home is tolerance has gone low, which means that if a person is working from home, I know he's working from home, so my tolerance is almost zero to any alert to that workstation. And we as a company are working on one button contain a strategy, which means if you would have asked me if a low level alert in bricks and mortars, I would have taken my time. I would have asked IT team to look at that asset, run a scan and share the reports. But since it is work at home model, we're working in a strategy that the moment I see an alert, I contain the machine. And when I contain the machine, it's no longer talking to any other stuff on the network.
True, true.
So I'm sure, and this is true with a lot of the organizations, uh, we are moving towards zero trust, as well as our tolerance towards risk has gone down like anything. So it's kind of zero tolerance, zero trust model, I would say.
Very, very interesting there again. Now, which brings me to an important question, which is really that if both of you were to individually be able to peer into the future, how, in your view, are you expecting security strategies and narratives across Indian industry to really play out? Do you think there's going to be, well, seismic shifts in how security is not just viewed, but also architected around anything, even as basic as an endpoint or on the network or any other levels of security that you would kind of, Rishi, Amit, either of you could kind of take a stab at this. Rishi, why don't you continue, considering you were in the flow on your narrative?
Yeah. So basically, what we are seeing, it will be a change, and change is bound to happen. and it is dependent on a lot of other conditions as well. So our DOT regulations have to change. They need to allow work at home. So considering, I'm assuming that that's all done. Uh, I think this will be quite favorable model for across the industry, barring a few very, very sensitive industries like pharma, where it's too
To that.
much sensitive. Yeah. So, uh, I think it's going up, and where traditional, and what the basic change I'm seeing is where all traditional BCP model failed, whether it was alternate site recovery, city recovery, or country recovery. I'm seeing a trend of people asking for BCP first option work at home, which means that traditionally you were working with bricks and mortars, and the next option is work at home, right? Which not only makes the job easier for us, and it becomes more flexible model. Imagine you are doing an intercity recovery with your office versus you doing a work at home recovery, which is much easier. And and there is acceptability of this model now. So if I go back 2 to 3 years back, especially in geographies like India, where I would have pitched a work at home model, the acceptability was much low. But due to COVID-19, a couple of things have happened. There is an acceptability of this model. Second, people know that this model works, right? Uh, it has its own challenges related to infrastructure, internet, power, but I think people and organizations have found their own creative ways to overcome that challenge. So this model is here to stay.
Outstanding, and I think we are going to make a note of that. Amit, if I may come to you on the same thing, really, if you were to be able to look into the future using today as the baseline, or well, the experience of the last 2.5 months as the baseline, would you say that you would see a fairly dramatic shift in how organizations would architect their security policies and their security strategies?
Uh, I short answer is yes, and I will like to continue what Rishi said. The BCP plans have failed. There is a massive acceptability of working from home model. In fact, I have thrown out my BCP plan of the record, and I just want to make it very, very simple. Instead of collecting tons of data and trying to reconcile here and there, it's going to be absolutely simple. Work from home, and look at other things as well. Having said that, from a security perspective, I spoke about trust and we spoke about assurance of security to the customers, to the board. Now that has taken a very, very huge, significant step. Uh, the importance of security operations and the importance of designing the new architecture catering to this model is catching a lot of ground. A lot of people are seriously started thinking on those lines. Uh, so, providing that kind of assurance with new tools, with new technologies, and working on this domain will become paramount in the months to come, in the years to come, actually. Uh, we can always have, as Rishi said, that the tolerance to the alerts is reduced. The tolerance of the customers and board is also reducing, and they're very scared of things going bad. Few examples, recent examples of ransomware, etc.,
Yes,
is putting the fear of God in almost everybody. And
absolutely.
a lot of our customers who were earlier not bothered about security have started reaching out and asking about the controls that are in place, and looking at more stringent actions to be taken. Okay, so there is a huge change in the world as to how they were looking at security, how they are getting assured on security. And this is driving the change on how to implement security and how to manage security going forward.
So, gentlemen, powerful and very impactful and very well articulated points. But therefore, if you were to, we have and a very, very fine August audience here that would love to know, therefore, when you look to industry partnerships with service providers, especially in the endpoint space, what are your expectations in terms of the innovation and new solutions that they would bring to the table? uh, that would help you mitigate some of these challenges in perhaps a much more fashioned manner, in a much more comprehensive manner. Uh, Rishi, you want to take a stab at this, please? what is innovation that's going to really drive uh, future security related solutions and products in a manner that is more coupled with your business objectives and business outcomes?
Okay. So Arjun, a lot of innovation will happen, right? So basically now it is an accepted model. People know that work at home is reality. A lot of
True.
large OEMs in the industry will start, and they've started working towards a work at home models. Now, and we can talk about technology, the endpoint controls, and we know the importance of an endpoint in the overall portion of the network. Now, people know that I can secure an asset, I can secure a computer. Now, the innovation is happening on mitigation of risk from a physical security perspective.
True.
Now, when you outsource some work to geographies like India, and you pick a bricks and mortar model, predominantly you have two things in mind. Your data is secured. It is secured from uh, basically external threats as well as your internal threats, and you implement strong physical security controls as well. Now, we've spoken about some of the technology controls on endpoint. Now, and that there is innovation happening on that front too, but there is a lot of innovation happening on the physical security side as well. Can I really uh, secure your work at home environment in a way that uh, you are not able to click pictures of the customer screen? Uh,
Absolutely.
there is there's nobody shoulder surfing, right? And there is no impersonation. Means it is you that you're working, and it's not your cousin or it's not your friend,
Indeed.
right? And innovation related to noise cancellation when it talks about voice business, right? And when you have geographies like India, how do you cancel the external noise while you're speaking to the customer? We all know
Yes.
that working conditions in India, there can be PG accommodations,
Oh,
there
yes.
can be, so there is a lot of innovation happening on that front over and above the typical endpoint technology controls. So, and I see a lot of progress being made, and people understand this model is here to stay. And I think in a large ecosystem of OEMs and companies, we will see a lot of progress being made in making this successful.
Very, very, very. Amit, your views on that? There is going to be a dramatic shift for sure. How do you kind of quantify or qualify that?
No, this is in fact I happened to do a POC for a tool which was doing this, which Rishi mentioned, and the AI element of facial recognition is implemented. A person bringing a phone in front of the screen is captured and it raises an alert.
Wow.
Uh, a person, two faces coming up, it raises an alert. So from an employee productivity tools, which were taking insights into what is logging and what is not working on, to the stronger physical security controls, all this is happening. In fact, the company that presented to us, and we are working with them now just to do this, uh, you know, they were still in an IDE mode. They were picking up some module. Okay, I'll show you this and show you this. We are still stitching this together, and all those things are happening. So, very interesting phase on innovation. A lot of innovation had actually happened on the mobility and the cloud perspective. Uh, it was again a culture and a mindset that people were not moving on to it. This COVID situation has changed that mindset. We've been discussing this again and again. BFSI people are happy to work from home,
Yes.
and despite this lockdown easing out, we have customers who've told that they'll come back to office in October.
Wow.
Okay, so uh, it is just that now that traction into moving on to those things will become very very easy. A lot of thought process is changing on the tools that we had thought about in our strategy. Some of them because of BFSI and on-prem things, we were thinking a lot on on-prem. All this has gone out of the window. So the innovation or the changes are happening from this work from home model as Rishi and we've been talking about. So interesting times on innovation, uh, kind of putting a hold to the strategy element and spending money because a lot of new interesting things are coming up. So good times
No,
ahead.
oh, indeed. But it's very interesting that you should speak about innovation and good things coming ahead in times to come. Is in conversation after conversation that I've had with CIOs, IT leaders, line of business C-suite leaders, one thing that's perennially come up is the volumes of data that they are having to deal with. Uh, in fact, there was this one particular conversation I was having about a couple of days back where this gentleman mentioned that, well, by normal predictions, we were to have reached some 82 petabytes of data by 2022. But the last 2 months have shown us really that we've already crossed that mark. Now, Rishi, Amit, when you're working with these copious volumes of data that are fairly unprecedented, really never ever imagined before, how do you in your individual roles and in your profiles kind of beef up or augment the entire security strategies that you may have had about 4 months back and bring it to bear upon today's situation really? So
Yeah.
yes, Rishi.
So I think data volumes have grown exponentially high, and we've seen a
Yes.
rise in the cloud, and that's primarily because in COVID-19, where logistics was a nightmare, how would you think we would have bumped up VPNs or our
Yes.
security tools? So the companies had no other option but to go for cloud solutions because clouds had capacity to bump up in scale. And suddenly we see whether it's endpoint related solutions or whether it's VPNs, they've all moved to either cloud or they've moved to a software model. So I think uh, one of the reasons of rise in the cloud and data uh, is actually attributable to COVID-19. Uh, but and I think this trend is going to go up because people who were hesitant to go on cloud earlier are now realizing the benefits of it, and they've now understood that it's equally secured, or it has the flexibility of on-demand scaling. So once you realize those benefits, I think you develop that acceptability for the solution.
And this, I think, becomes all the more important also. And Amit, if I may come to you, because increasingly organizations are realizing that the rate of innovation essentially depends on their ability to leverage data and turn it into what, well, classically is called data capital. Now, in that kind of a scenario, local machines that store volumes of data, do you, in your estimate, feel that security solutions today may not be adequately well equipped to deal with that kind of a situation and therefore will require some serious rethinking or reimagination on how security is architected for local machines or endpoints that store volumes of data apart from the cloud also, of course?
So that challenge of storing a lot of data on the physical devices whilst roaming is a big concern and a
Mhm.
huge risk, despite all endpoint encryption and all that stuff. Now, if you see the statistics, the number of virtual desktops and workspaces that have come out of Azure and Amazon AWS are mind-boggling.
Mhm.
So there is a very very quick transitioning to cloud. There is a very quick transitioning to leveraging those kind of controls in place, which ensure that uh, more data can be stored on these local workspaces, provisioned through the cloud. The security is anyway maintained, and it is only the connectivity bandwidth which remains an issue. See, on ground, a lot of people still had limited plans for their data at home.
Mhm.
Okay, that is becoming a quick challenge, and we had to overcome that within the first week itself. By because they were not able to patch up the systems, they were not able to connect. The collaboration tools were taking a lot of bandwidth, and it was an issue at that point in time. So all those issues, all those measures were taken care of at that point in time to ensure that connectivity remains seamless. But a lot of transitioning into cloud to ensure that the data storage and the physical loss of data can also be prevented going forward.
Interesting, because I think a couple of the trends that we are seeing that are positively emerging from this, and that's coming out even from your narratives individually as you speak and collectively, of course, is two fundamental ones. One is that the whole concept of the future of work has rapidly or drastically or dramatically changed, really, depending on how you look at it. And with it has changed the concept of the future of trust. Now, when you kind of bring these two together and both moving at velocities that are, well, fairly unfathomable, uh, and the whole concept of the digital workspace, a workspace that can best be defined as being agnostic of space, time, and any geographical domicile, really. How does that change life for gentlemen such as yourself in being able to architect future looking solutions? Like between Rishi and Amit, when you rightly mentioned that you're starting from a zero trust game, how does that kind of change, and how do you therefore foresee being able to work with solutions providers, endpoint devices that come factory provisioned and therefore encrypted? How do you kind of see that journey progressing? Rishi, if I may,
I can,
or Amit, yeah, can you
yeah,
please?
sorry.
Please, please,
So,
please, by all means,
now,
sir.
so starting on a culture change, when people are saying now of business and on personal lives, that if classes are happening online,
Indeed.
uh, does the quality or the school that you are connected with makes a difference? So that's a question people have started raising, because why do I need to go to a particular school and I can do my classes online? And same goes with colleges, because almost all colleges have started this session online. So does it really matter that I need to take admission? And that opens opportunities for people to, there is no limitation on seats on a good college there. It is online, so there is no limitation, and uh, that makes the game little easier for us in business, because now in-person presence, customer relationship, all those things do not matter. It is emails, collaboration tools, and talks. So therefore there is a huge potential to expand your business. There is a huge potential to do more things, but it is having a flip side, uh, because of different geographies of work, because of the lack of trust, and the comfort that we used to have in being in office and working, that trust to wane away and become a digital trust online, uh,
It's
that
going
is
to be a
pushing
while
people.
coming.
Yeah, so unless I see people, I'm very sure Rishi also has teams which are spread over the world. I also have teams which are spread over. So when I'm in office, I'm very comfortable in not having a meeting or not getting a status. But sitting at home, I'm little jittery and
You're
I want to
always
know that
fidgety.
status.
Yes, yes,
So
indeed.
probably that unlearning and learning as a culture has to come in. Tools and technologies are evolving to help us onto those lines, and that, I guess, is going to become the future going forward.
Rishi, that brings me to an interesting question, which I must put to you. Is that increasingly a new generation of the workforce, the gig economy is really digital talent that wants the freedom, flexibility, and convenience of working from anywhere. And therefore, all of this boiling down to the fact that a new generation is increasingly looking for experience as much as they're looking for compensation and remuneration. Uh, how does that change the level playing ground for you as far as security is concerned? Because while the employee satisfaction scores are equally important, and increasingly a new generation is going to be very different from perhaps how the three of us functioned back in the day, where things were given. How do you kind of balance that entire thing? How complex is that journey for you, or do you foresee it?
Yeah, it's a learning experience, and being in security domain, we have to be on our toes always, right?
Mm.
Security landscape itself is changing so dynamically. I mean, it's difficult to keep pace. Now we're talking about gig economy platforms, where one person may be employed in multiple companies and maybe competition, right?
True that.
And then you are paying either per transaction or per interaction, right? How do you ensure that your data is secured, while people maintain that sanity of what they are doing between different companies? So that poses a different challenge altogether. uh, and we continue to look for platforms. We build a platform on our own, which is on the gig economy, which is available in the market, which we are using for our workforce and new millennials. So, and on the other side, where your question was related to endpoints, and I think OEMs have to play and take some of our burden now, right? So, where predominantly when we buy endpoint, we are responsible for it, and we deploy all tools and technologies to make sure that it is secured. Now, can OEMs think out of the box and provide me some level of security upfront while it is shipped from their locations? And then I just move or add on my level of security to make it a full secured asset. So, uh, and and some features of security should be supported out of the box.
Yeah.
And as the discussion is revolving around endpoints, uh, I'm just picking on endpoints as they play a very critical role in the overall security gimmick. So I strongly feel uh, as we move further, I'm sure OEMs are already thinking about it, and how will they share the burden with us, making sure that endpoint is fully secured.
And in fact, I must bring this to the table that Dell Technologies, who is the sponsoring partners with Strateging, precisely have this kind of a solution, which is called the Unified Workspace Solutions. Fundamentally rests on four pillars of deploy, support, secure, and manage, where factory provisioning essentially ensures a very high level of encryption and security, yet gives organizations the flexibility. And of course, for the larger audience, there will be more of this as we go along. But gentlemen, I do have a view on the clock, but I must ask you, as seasoned, experienced practitioners of technology, IT, and therefore security, which plays a very, very important part. If you were to peer into the future, let's say about 5 years from now, because I was initially going to say 10, 10 maybe too large shot out of the park. If you would look at 5 years from now, what would be your 2 or 3 key predictions about how you see the entire security, endpoint security landscape evolving? What are those 3 things that you think are dramatically going to change, and therefore enabling and forcing you also to revisit traditional concepts? Amit, you want to take a shot at that?
So, uh, what I see is an absolute control on data. Maybe through tagging or through something, and ensuring that data is there is a route available or route known or monitored on where it is going and how it is moving. Uh, Riding on mobility and cloud. So, these are three places, and data remains will be the most important thing, uh, being positioned or transitioned through the cloud, and being accessed through mobility. But this is where I see, and lot of control. Obviously, we've discussed this. A lot of things going into the cloud. What I see is removal of absolute traditional uh, firewalls, IPS, IDS from the buildings. So office buildings would be nothing but providing free internet, or maybe one level of internet, and nothing else. So people go in BYOD, whether they want to go, whether they don't want to go, and lot of change in measuring productivity and output of work. So these are few things that I can foresee going forward.
Lovely, lovely. Rishi, if I were to come to you.
I stopped taking a shot for 5 years based on my experience in COVID-19. 5 years.
That is nicely one.
Uh,
That's
so,
nicely put.
so I think,
Well, into the near future.
yeah, near future is like people are already talking about days, weeks, and months, right? So, and I would build what Amit said, right? So, we talk about information security policies, and what I feel is that there'll be solutions which will support your policies irrespective where your data is, right? Uh, do a company has a different policy for cloud or in office? Your policy remains the same, right?
Mm, mm,
Your
mm.
tools should support that policy irrespective of the location of the
True,
data.
true.
I cannot, I should not be saying that my data is more secure in bricks and mortars and it is less secure in cloud, right? It should be completely transparent wherever, right? So I think I strongly foresee, mm, we've we've spent a lot on technologies and tools, and predominantly the investments have been on infrastructure side, but data is at the core, right? And considering that we are seeing a large explosions in cloud usage, uh, so I see seamless protection to data irrespective of the location, right? And I think that's going to be future, uh, and and I see a lot of development being happening in that domain already.
Outstanding, outstanding. But gentlemen, uh, I do have a view on the clock, and that pretty much is what we have time for in this particular segment. For the larger audience, I think the key takeaways are fairly clear and present. And if I were to boil everything that Rishi and Amit held forth on so eloquently and expansively, it is, but that the single biggest message is that the tomorrow that we were always discussing in boardrooms or across the office corner is here. And change is the only constant, to use a cliched term. But that pretty much brings us to the end. You were hearing me in conversation with Rishi Rajpal and Amit Dhawan. Gentlemen, thank you so very much. It has been nothing short of a privilege to have been in dialogue with you. And I'm sure the audience is going to take back an immense amount of knowledge and insights into how they should architect security solutions. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Arjun. Thanks, Amit.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Arjun.
very
Thanks.
Thanks,
much.
Thank,
Rishi. Nice
thank you.
conversation. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Lovely.
Bye.
Stay
Bye.
tuned for the next segment.
Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to you all. Thank you so much for watching this. We are here today to talk about a digital workspace of the future, how we can enable and create a secure and modern workspace. With that, let's jump right ahead. By way of quick introduction, my name is JR Balaji. I am the Senior Manager of Product Marketing at Dell Technologies Unified Workspace. I want to begin by making the statement that security can no longer be an afterthought. It has to be intrinsic to the IT infrastructure. If you really look at the evolution of cybersecurity in general, and more specifically endpoint security, several years ago, it was designed really to work and address the perimeter centric world. Most users were within the confines of the office, behind the firewall. About 8 to 10 years ago, or even slightly prior to that, the industry started undergoing quite a bit of shift. Things were getting modern, users were working very differently than prior to that. All this basically led to what we now popularly call as the movement, which is the workforce transformation movement. So, what is workforce transformation? Now, if you look at the internet, you will get half a dozen different definitions of workforce transformation. But the sum and substances of all of that is that when organizations enable their end users to have access to data and applications from any location that they choose to access from, on any device of their choice, and really be able to access and share and collaborate on all the information and really thrive in that process. But while doing all this, staying supremely secure. That's really the ultimate vision or goal that most organizations are marching towards. With that said, like I said, about 8 to 10 years ago, this entire paradigm shift started happening. And the fact that users were always confined within the perimeter started getting challenged. As you can see on this particular slide, data is no longer on a computer we own or a network we control. That is the new paradigm. And it, of course, did not happen overnight. It has continued to evolve over the last 8 to 10 years. Now, as I said in the beginning, right, the digital transformation is something that every organization is looking to do. It's a way for organizations to differentiate and compete better in their respective industry. But you cannot have a digital transformation without having a security transformation. In fact, I remember having conversations with a lot of customers, and oftentimes they look at security and productivity as kind of being in loggerheads. You can either have a very secure environment where we lock everything down and the users have to jump through the hoops to try and get work done. On the other hand, if you really enabled users to really access data and applications from any location and really open things up, it was always meant to create security risk. But that's the challenge that most organizations face today. But what are some of the biggest digital transformation trends? 90% of devices, as you can see here, are mobile, are not on premise 50% of the time. 85% of the enterprise internet traffic has moved from web to SaaS to cloud, and that transformation is also progressing on a pretty steady basis. Enterprise now have more SaaS applications than they do on on-premise. I read this interesting statistic very recently that within a month or two after the COVID situation, the public cloud adoption by most organizations went up by nearly 64%, which means your applications, your data is in more locations than before. It's being accessed and collaborated upon from different locations. And it also means that as IT departments or IT decision makers, you don't have the same sense of control that you had in a perimeter centric world. Now, all the challenges that I mentioned earlier pretty much applies to security and endpoint security in general, but that has gotten complicated manifold with the COVID situation. As you can see from few examples on this slide and many others that you will find when you do a Google search, that this situation, the current COVID situation, has presented the adversaries with an opportunity to up their game and launch even greater and bolder attacks. But like I said, this is a journey that we are all in. We're all trying to be good Samaritans, trying to protect our IT environment. As you can see from here, the phishing attacks are up by nearly 40%, and more um, such attacks are being launched, generally with respect to the infrastructure, but also sometimes very heavily targeting the conference services that people use. Now, as we transition to the next phase of this discussion, I want to say that, and this is something I'm pretty sure every one of you will recognize, that cybersecurity is an arms race. It continues to be an arms race. I oftentimes feel that this is kind of like the battle of good versus evil, as the adversaries try and build better and more niftier offenses. We as IT decision makers have to continue to stay a step ahead and build better and better defenses to protect our environment. Now, before we dive specifically into the endpoint security, I want to kind of touch upon a little bit about the unified workspace mission that we have at Dell. Now, unified workspace is something that is primarily what was designed to really help customers with their journey towards the modernization of end user computing. And as you can see from these several pillars mentioned here, you have to provide users personalized hardware. How can IT decision makers or IT organizations get their users productive up and running on the very first day? How can they offer them a better and optimized performance, uninterrupted workflow, which means having better management and better support for the device, and so on and so forth. But what you will also notice on this particular slide is that two important things. One is security is not its own pillar. For the longest time, the end user computing was built and put together, and then organizations used to look around and say, how do we secure this? That has to change. Security has to be intrinsic. It has to surround everything that we build from an end user computing perspective. The other important aspect of this is ultimate goal of all this is to also have happy and inspired employees. Many organizations are starting to measure employee NPS score. I read a statistic again that said that by about 2021, nearly 60 to 80% of the large corporations will have some form or shape measuring the employee net promoter score. So this is not just about making the life of IT departments better and keeping them safe, but also in the process give employees and the younger generation a much more inspired working environment. Now, this is something that is extremely important for us to ground ourselves in when it comes to cybersecurity. Cybersecurity has always been and will always be about reducing the attack surface. While we can have conversations about the various tools, various attack techniques that the adversaries use, it's all aimed at how can we, as IT departments and decision makers and security decision makers, stay a step ahead and really reduce the attack surface that organizations are being exposed. Now, what are these attack surfaces? Like I mentioned earlier, when employees have access to data and applications on variety of devices, variety of operating systems, accessing them from different locations, fast embracing cloud, all of that is actually increasing the risk and exposure for the organizations. How can we stay a step ahead and reduce that is a key game plan here. Now, taking from that statement that I just made, we can no longer rest on the fact that we have solved for the cybersecurity challenges that exist today. We also have to stay a step ahead and see how we can prepare organizations better for the attacks that are coming. Now, we did this very recent survey with Forrester with our customers, and even we were quite surprised to find that nearly 63% of the companies that we surveyed experienced some sort of a data breach or a compromise, primarily by bad guys exploiting vulnerabilities from an hardware or a silicon, firmware, and BIOS, and so on and so forth. That was an unknown threat vector. Even till about a couple of years ago, bulk of the threat vectors were focused on malware and phishing and to some extent social engineering. So how can we better prepare organizations to not only stop those traditional attack methods, but also these emerging attack methods? Now, one recommendation that we always have for organizations is to look at the to frameworks in cybersecurity. The NIST cybersecurity framework is the most popular of all. It's been around for a while and it very comprehensively gives organizations various aspects of cybersecurity that they need to look for and solve for. Now, we also have other examples like MITRE ATT&CK framework, which also gives organizations a very neutral way of assessing their security posture versus how the security threat landscape itself is evolving. Now, diving more specifically into the endpoint security, and as I said here, the attacks just don't come from phishing and malware anymore. As you can see from the examples here, you look at all the different layers of the end user computing infrastructure, starting all the way from supply chain to data and applications. And through this entire process, there are so many different methods and points of exposure that the adversaries can exploit. So therefore, when we look at the endpoint security from a Dell's perspective, we call it the trusted device portfolio. We look at the comprehensive set of layers on the right that you see from supply chain to the data. But we address that by building both Dell unique capabilities on the hardware, which is not something that the software players focus a lot on. But we also layer on top of that an extensive set of partnerships, both within Dell Technologies through the VMware and Carbon Black and SecureWorks, and also with valued partners such as Absolute and Netscope. With a combination of a portfolio like this, we are able to comprehensively address any sort of points of exposure that might exist within the end user computing infrastructure. But I would say this though, that while we make this attempt, our intention is that these are not silos of tools or capabilities that we are devising to help customers, but also integrate all these different tools and their ability to share telemetry and share information so organizations have better preparedness, faster discovery of threats, and a better response. Now, this is, in summary, the Dell Trusted Devices portfolio. As you can see, we have 6 different categories. Below the line is the below the operating system layer, where we have Safe ID for protecting user credentials. safe BIOS for protecting against all the BIOS and firmware level attacks that might happen, and also safe screen, which gives you privacy screens and camera shutters and so on and so forth. Above the line, above the operating system, we also have three different categories. We have Dell Safe Data, which is all about protecting the data that resides either on a device or on cloud. You have Safeguard and Response, which is the portfolio consisting of VMware and Carbon Black, which is really designed to prevent complicated and sophisticated external threats as well as more common commodity malware that organizations face. And last but not the least, a very important component of the digital workspace is the VMware Unified Workspace product or a solution that provides organizations like this single pane of glass to access and work on their workspace, being able to single sign on and having better threat telemetry. Now, diving a couple of clicks deeper into the below the operating system space. Again, I will not go through every single item mentioned here, but I would leave with the fact that we want to create the ability to prevent, detect, and respond to threats below the operating system with the same level of variety and sophistication that we now provide above the operating system. So all of these tools and capabilities are designed so that organizations have that same level of visibility to threats that are lurking below the operating system. Um, the other important shift that is happening, and I made a mention to this early on, with cloud adoption, which is already increasing and dramatically accelerated with the emergence of with the COVID situation, you will see that there are nearly 2,400 plus cloud services and large enterprise has access to. And the most startling fact is a lot of these are not IT controlled or IT led. Only 2% of them are IT controlled. The rest is end user controlled. So again, talking to customers like you, we realize that 93% of the organizations are extremely concerned about cloud security in general. Now, this is from an endpoint security perspective, but the reality is that in the increasingly interconnected world we all live in, a variety of devices, ubiquitous computing, organizations can no longer afford to be only focused on endpoint and endpoint security and then focused on network security as kind of its own thing. We talk about this from we call it intrinsic security, and we refer to these 5 security control points. The 5 security control points are endpoint, identity, workload, cloud, and network. Now, they're all interconnected. Oftentimes, when an attack or a cyber incident happens, it can originate on the endpoint and transition over to a network or a cloud, or vice versa. How can we give organizations a level of interconnectedness and sharing of telemetry between these 5 security control points so they can see and act against threats in a better and a faster manner? That is an essential component of our strategy going forward. VMware calls it intrinsic security, where the aim is to integrate all these different tools that I talked about in the prior slides and share telemetry so that organizations are not crippled by having siloed pieces of information. Now, this is also a topic that is close to my heart, and it's very critical that organizations face. Now, every organization is different. They all have IT and security departments. In some organizations, these are all under the same team. Sometimes they are different teams. But no matter the structure, organizations use different tools between these two teams. And there is not a level of interconnectedness and sharing of telemetry that exists today between IT and security to better solve these security challenges. Again, going back to the previous slide, the aim of the intrinsic security infrastructure is that we provide a set of tools that are less resource consuming, easy to deploy and manage, fewer tools, the better, instead of having too many tools that can be taxing on your system resources. And while you do all that, we also want to collect all that information and bridge the gap between IT and security organizations so they can share telemetry. They can be uh, joint at the hip in trying to solve these security challenges. But I want to also leave you with this thought towards the end that it's not just about tools anymore. As I said, it's really about the telemetry. Um, I believe sincerely that the organizations that are going to win the next wave of cyber attacks are the ones that are not just are better at building a set of tools, but organizations that can better integrate these tools, manage telemetry, have that cross-functional visibility, and take faster action. And that is what is going to make a difference between an organization that is stopping a data breach versus the organization that is not able to stop the next data breach from happening. I want to leave you all with this final thought in terms of having listened to the last 15 minutes or so in how the security industry itself has evolved and what kinds of tools and techniques exist out there and the Dell Technologies point of view in solving for those. But these are 5 very simple steps that I believe every organization can take. First and foremost, identifying and assessing risks. Before you jump ahead and add a couple of more tools into your basket of tools, it's really important to identify and assess your overall risk. Dell offers assessment services. There are other third-party tools as well. So I would start there. The next step is to really reassess your security architecture. Every organization is unique. You want to be able to weigh your security risk versus your business priorities and so on and forth. Then comes the point of establishing your security posture. Now, I have capitalized the word your for the simple reason that, again, as I said earlier, every organization is unique. The same set of tool sets one organization sees and uses is not necessarily the best for the other organizations. So, really assessing your risk, where your priorities lie. Most importantly, no organization has unlimited budget. So, taking account of budget and your priorities, you will have to build your own security posture. But you're not in that alone. Companies like Dell Technologies are there to really help you. The fourth bullet is something that I talked extensively in the last couple of slides around the broader visibility. It's no longer to have tools that are siloed and are only looking at one aspect of your infrastructure or end user computing layer. You need to have broader visibility across the endpoint layers from supply chain all the way to data and applications. But in addition to that, you also want to have the cross spectrum visibility across network, cloud, and the other security control points I referred to. And last but not the least, we recognize that there is nearly a 4 million labor shortage as it stands today of qualified and trained cybersecurity analysts. So you're not in this alone. Definitely feel open to seek outside help. SecureWorks is an organization under Dell Technologies that has 20 years of deep expertise and a deep bench of experts that have been doing this for a living for many, many years. There are organizations such as SecureWorks that are there to help be those extra set of eyes and ears on the ground to really help you combat these modern cyber threats. With that, thank you so much for your patient listening. I hope this was beneficial, and we certainly hope to engage with you moving forward. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon and welcome back. We are in the next segment of the webinar by Dell Technologies titled Where Safety Matters, From Here to the Modern Secure Workplace. And in conversation with me are two very, very eminent gentlemen and professionals from the industry. Please join me in welcoming Ashish Chalke, Senior Solutions Engineer, Security Solutions Group at VMware. Ashish, brilliant to have you with us.
Same here.
And Sudipto Shekhar Ghosh, Director Device Marketing, Microsoft India. Sudipto, pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. Super excited to be here.
Thank you. Gentlemen, if I may directly jump into it, increasingly, one of the things that we're realizing is that data capital borne out by the volumes of data that we are generating across the ecosystem, is going to fuel IP and innovation in the future. But if you kind of think about it, a lot of that data, which will finally turn into capital, continues to reside on localized devices, thereby increasing the risks of data loss or data theft or DLP as it is classically called. How do you folks at VMware and Microsoft kind of come together along with Dell to architect solutions that will devise more robust security, endpoint security solutions? Anybody, Sudipto, if I may come to you, please.
Sure. So I think, as I said, I was super excited about it because for Microsoft, this is a very, very core area that we discuss. So I'll start off with the point that Satya always says in Microsoft says we are, our mission is to empower every individual and organization on this planet to achieve more. And that mission can fundamentally come to reality only when you are secure, absolutely. And every endpoint of it is secure. And what Microsoft brings on the table is it's just not about one patch of security that goes across and addresses an individual. We take the entire spectrum, and that's how we offer our security solutions. So it's a comprehensive set of security solutions that are built to work together, starting from identity and access management to threat protection to cloud security. That's how we look at security, and we work very closely with Dell, in fact. So because Dell happens to be one of our strongest partners on the device ecosystem, and the devices that they make on Windows 10 primarily comes with that endpoint security. And as you rightly said, there's a huge amount of risk that exists, and with the current state of things, the risk is only aggregating, and it's obvious, right? So how do we get more, tighter at the same time, give the endpoint user more liberty to actually use that device? Because at the end of the day, this is not something to bind him down, but to actually explore his best. So that's how we look at it. And Windows 10 comes with that fundamental, core value that we need to ensure comprehensive security across from one spectrum end to the other.
Ashish, if you were to take a stab at it, how are your solutions, the innovation that you bring to the table, essentially helping organization enhance and very significantly the whole concept of endpoint security?
Yeah, so Dell and VMware have been pioneering around remote working and remote secure workforce over the last few years. I think this move towards the remote workforce has been going on in the industry for quite some time already, and COVID has actually accelerated that. VMware and Dell have solutions around secure access so that users can access applications that are hosted in the data center or hosted on the cloud very simply. Organizations do not lose out on the security, for example, to be able to identify who the user is without actually looking at physical controls or leveraging physical identity, but to be able to verify that this is the correct user and has the right access to the applications. That is one. That is the fundamental block. The second would be around hosting applications. So, for example, some of the applications were not designed in a way that that would be possible for remote workers to access. So, about hosting those applications, be able to leverage and enable them for the remote users to be able to access those applications as well. From a security perspective on the endpoint, so for example, we have seen a movement where endpoint security has become very vital over the past few years. Attackers have been trying to leverage endpoints as the primary attack vector, and we have created platforms to help organizations secure those devices. So we have the Carbon Black Cloud platform and the Workspace ONE platform that look at hardening that particular endpoint, reducing the attack surface of that endpoint, and then looking at from a security lifecycle around prevention, detection, and response to enable security teams to stop attacks, the malware, fileless, or ransomware-like attacks, leverage analytics and the community intelligence to to stay ahead of the attackers, and then leverage detection and response to look at attacks that may have missed due to loser configurations, or to have a quick triage into how a particular attack launched. This helps investigation analysts as well to quickly identify, okay, this is how an attack launched and this is what I need, or these are the things that I need to respond to that particular attack as well. So quick tools to help them detect and respond, have a visual triage on those particular attacks. And then finally, you leverage the same learnings that they did from this first
Of
stage
course.
into hardening it again.
Which brings me to an interesting question, gentlemen, is now while I hate saying this, and this increasingly seems to be the most cliched statement of thoughts, I'm still going to say it, so do bear with me, that the world as we know it seems to have changed. And everybody is saying this now. And increasingly, however, looking into the future uh, comes with its share of very, very significant uncertainties, especially in the security domain. Also because we're now living in a fairly uncertain set of circumstances in the industry backdrop. Now, if I were to ask you to peer into the future, how are folks such as yourselves at VMware and Microsoft developing innovation and solutions that will create and devise and help organizations devise strategies based around the future of trust, really, with the endpoint in mind? How and Sudhito, why don't you?
Sure.
I'd like to come to
Uh,
you.
I'll just refer to so very thanks Ashish. I think you brought in a very important point, right? That how the endpoint, how do you need to actually preempt those threats and try to solve that problem. Now, I'll refer to a paper that was released by Gartner about 2 quarters back. No one knew there's something coming like this. Actually, it talks about the 5 magic quadrants, and those 5 magic quadrants are all about the security piece, right? So it talks about cloud access security brokers, so CASB solutions. It talks about access management, which is at the front end. It talks about enterprise information archiving. That's a very interesting topic, and obviously the unified endpoint management, and finally the endpoint protection platforms. Specifically, and I'll talk about Dell devices, especially the Dell Latitude, the Dell Vostro, and the Optiplex, and all these devices. They come with something called the Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection. And it actually brings in very important things. Number one, it brings in preventive protection. So as simple as it can be a boot sector virus. So if you remember, because let's understand, the hackers are getting smarter as much as we are getting smarter. So they are putting enough number of resources. It's a very lucrative business today. So one is preventive protection. How do you bring that piece in? How do you do post breach detection so that helps, and so it circles back into that whole thing? And how do you bring in automated investigation? See, that's a very important process. So, and in fact, as you know, that Windows 10, when it was designed, it was completely designed bottoms up. It was not taken like a Windows 8 and then top it up with some stuff. It was completely, and if any of the tech enthusiasts are part of the insider program, you'll get to see the stuff that is happening, so the latest builds and all. So primarily what we offer along on every Dell device that goes on with Windows 10 Pro is that Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection. The interesting part is you do not pay a single dollar or a rupee more to access that. That actually comes inbuilt. Just because you bought the Dell device with Windows 10 Pro, you get all of it, which is an extremely big advantage. And we also believe, and I'll pass on the baton to Ashish for his views. See, Microsoft's point on security is not about just Microsoft. Remember, at the end, the customer is just not using only a Microsoft device. He'll be using an alternate operating telephone or a tablet or any other device. So the data has to be secure in all those platforms also. And as again referring to Satya, he always says it's not the device at the center. It is me at the center. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so a Windows 10 Pro device is just one of those devices, right? My data sits actually, so absolutely right, and that's where we come from. So we put a lot of emphasis on this to ensure that security of the endpoint is taken care of.
And Ashish, your points of view on that, please. The concepts of future of trust.
Yeah, so I think Sudhirto mentioned it correctly, right? So this is not just one view around the endpoint itself, but the I'd say the data capital that the endpoint reaches out to as well. It could be cloud applications, it could be applications hosted inside data center, or even work applications that are on the endpoint itself and the user. So we have created platforms around the same. So ability to manage the device and ensure that the data itself is protected on it. That's I'd say the first layer of trust. For example, Dell devices by default come along with safe BIOS, which ensures that the device itself is secure from BIOS level attacks or the layer one attacks, as we call them, right? And then you add in the software layers around unified management, which enables organizations to manage their Windows device along with any other device that they have, whether it is a mobile device, together, right, inside a unified management platform. Uh, then you add in the hardening layer to verify. So, for example, in today's world, people are working from home, right? You cannot
Yeah,
leverage a similar patching strategy or the hardening strategy that you would leverage when you were in office. You cannot
so true.
push GBs of patches out to those devices. So now you have to be much more surgical in nature, looking at what are the weaker points and leveraging. So maybe sort of a query like mechanism, leverage that and then push out those surgical patches. So hardening based on use case or hardening based on need rather than blanket hardening for a remote user. That this is what platform leverages. You can utilize both approaches for hardening the device and then bringing that on from breach investigation or post breach analysis, wherein organizations can leverage, for example, not just the capability of detecting and the automated prevention, but also investigation into what is the root cause, what needs to be changed, leveraging that capability, leveraging the data that has been collected,
Indeed.
to enable better security and to enable better platform access as well.
Very,
Right?
very, very powerful, very impactful points. But I must ask you in the same breath, and we realize that increasingly as we look forward, the gig economy is pretty much here to stay. And increasingly, we're going to have workforces kind of spread across the globe, working remotely and so on and so forth. A trailer of which we saw over the last 70 odd days where we've had the lockdown and been forced to work from home. Uh, I must ask you this, both of you, really, is within all the endeavor to make devices and the whole platforms more secure, uh, do you think it will lead to a compromise in the experience, the flexibility, and the convenience that users, people like me, for example, finally crave for when we work on our devices? Because you can't push it to a point where security becomes the overarching concept without, and like Sudhita, you rightly said, it is me at the center. And therefore, do you feel that it may tend to hinder, if not compromise seriously, the experience, flexibility, and the convenience that users crave for to be able to work from anywhere with the freedoms to be able to do so, yet in a secure manner?
I'll answer that in a mile. And before that, I love the point that Ashish mentioned, and Indians love surgical strikes.
So true.
Yeah. So I'll talk about two, three things. So there's a real life example of a friend of mine who used to run a financial services company into forex and all. Now he said, I'm giving my employees a work from home opportunity. So I've just told them that you open your home laptop and you start working. Then he called me the next day and he said, I've realized one thing. That guy is working, but how does he work? Because Tally is sitting on the desktop in his office. So as simple as that. Now, the moment he said that, I said, simple. So I use Windows, so go to remote connection and do it. And then he realized, no, these are all home laptops and they don't have the remote connection facility. And then the next day he called up and he said, yeah, I found a freeware which can do the
Ouch.
same job. And that's when, see, that's the risk. That's the risk, and people don't have that. So, and very importantly, and rightly said, because see, I don't blame that guy because that's how his need is.
Yes.
As simple as that. And I think this is the responsibility of the captains of the industry like Dell, VMware, and Microsoft to bring that information, educate that person to ensure that that security point is informed and he's taken care of. I'll touch about another important point, which is how do you ensure the decision lies with the end user. And for example, we've got a feature called autopilot. Now, this is a new feature in Windows 10. What it does is you just open the laptop. You don't need an IT person to come and set up your laptop. Typically, we are used to do that in enterprise, and Ashish will resonate that. I join a new company, I go to the IT desk, I give them a new
They
laptop.
provision.
Correct. And he'll say, okay, come back after 3 hours. I will do this, that, and all.
Oh, yes, we've all been
Sorry,
through
sir.
that.
Sorry, sir. That is over. It's just Windows Autopilot. What I need is I have to put in my email address, which is already pre-configured, and everything comes in together. Now that is a great advantage when, as Ashish referred to, on a wonderful 100 Mbps Giga LAN. But when I'm using those local, at times, in fact, even mobile tethering, it is not an easy
Yes,
task. So
indeed.
one important thing, another important thing that Windows brought in Windows 10 was that you could actually delay the pushing of these patches into the endpoint. So that gives a comfort. So what we are trying to do, we are empowering that end user, right,
Yes,
irrespective
indeed.
of the device that you use, right, to empower. At the same time, taking care of the complete security at this point. So I think this was
Outstanding.
preempted very well. That ensuring that the end user can decide when to install that patch and not get forced. Suddenly a 2 gig stuff coming in, and that's the time when my son wants to do his Zoom classes. So
I
that's how.
agree. Ashish, I do have a view on the clock, but what are your points on the same thing? Security with convenience and experience.
So, I'll give you a sort of an experience that I had. So I joined VMware last month, and to be joining a company in the COVID era is not an easy task.
Not at all.
Very honest, right? So I needed access, I needed laptops, and I live in Mumbai, which means that I
Oh,
couldn't get a
yes.
laptop delivered at all because of the lockdown. And this is where I got to experience the VMware platforms firsthand. Uh, I was able to access all of my work applications from my personal device. I had a desktop. I was able to access all of them within the VMware platform. All of the applications I was able to remote in, perform typical activities, reply to emails, access work applications, all of those activities. It was like natively I was sitting on my own work laptop and performing that. All
True.
of this happened in a quick 15-minute activity, right?
Wow.
It was not like somebody had to come in or do a remote and perform any of those patch management or install some software. It was all self-service. Just a URL, log in, and get access quickly, right? This is, I would say, where we are essentially ensuring that the productivity has increased for the user, but we are not sacrificing the security of it, right? I was able to access those applications, but not port data out to my personal device. So that is
I,
something where the organization maintained the security. And then when I finally received the device, it was kind of a very simple self-service where I logged in, all of the applications jumped right into the device, automatically installed. The work I was doing on the why am I home PC, right? It automatically came into my work PC as well. So I don't really need to do anything. It was self-service, and this is where I see the future moving towards as well.
true.
Seamless
So true.
connectivity to device, seamless access to applications without compromise on security. Similarly, for example, from a threat prevention perspective as well, what we are looking at is organizations shifting to consolidated tools rather than having different silos or different tools. Because not only are the users outside the office, even the security teams are outside the office today.
Yes,
They
indeed.
do, they are not in a collaborative space where they can share learnings and share tips. So they need a consolidated view of all of the incidents that are happening, have a consolidated dashboard across capabilities that maybe IT and security teams can share. This is where organizations starting to leverage the power of cloud. So we have a cloud platform that they can leverage quickly to deploy tools, sensors around the endpoints, and leverage all of these capabilities around hardening, prevention, detection, response together. So you can
Outstanding.
see from a rollout perspective, rather than having months designing a project, what has pushed across is the capability to do all of this in minutes. And from a user perspective, this is all happening in the background. I don't really look at or have those waits where somebody on a Zoom call joins in and then installs it or comes to my desktop and
Indeed.
do it. It's all happening in
Indeed.
the background. So I'd say
Outstanding.
I'd say that this is the balance that we are looking at, right, from a product and a balance perspective. From an access perspective as well, what we're looking at is uh, we have moved away from having the user access every application with a different username password.
True that.
You
True
can
that.
leverage technology, have a single sign-on based architecture, which ensures that the user is verified correctly, but then all of his applications are seamlessly accessible for the user. He doesn't need to authenticate to them again
Indeed.
as well.
Indeed.
That is something
Indeed.
that we are also leveraging.
No, but thank you. Thank you. That was lovely. Gentlemen, but that, unfortunately, much as I would like to continue with this very exciting conversation and dialogue, that pretty much is what we have time for today. We've been privileged to have both of you join us, make time for us, and share your views and experiences with the audience. For the audience, I really must say that the event is titled Where Safety Matters, and as we continue to hear industry leaders such as Sudipto and Ashish speak about it, it does indeed transpire that safety indeed does matter to wonderful folks, organizations that are striving day in and day out to drive innovation and secure architectures and solutions. Sudeep Shekhar Ghosh and Ashish Chalke, thank you for joining us for this webinar. Wonderful. To the audience, please stay tuned in. We will come up with the next segment shortly. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Hi, welcome back. It has indeed been a very, very interesting set of conversations through the last 90 minutes. And as we draw to a close, I am now in conversation for the key takeaways with Shantanu Ganguly, Chief Executive Officer of Strategy. Shantanu, thank you for making time out and joining us today.
My pleasure, Arjun. Thank you.
Thank you. Shantanu, it's very interesting, really, that over the last 90 odd minutes, we've had such an interesting set of conversations around the whole concept of security in the overall domain of digital workspaces of the future and unified workspaces. I felt that it was pertinent for me to kind of, I will just share my screen as I speak, but bring about a summary, really, of all the conversations that we've had with our very, very eminent industry leaders as well as subject matter experts from Dell. Is predominantly that the new vocabulary, Shantanu, of a digital enterprise in today's economy, especially to do with strategy and security, is that predominantly, apart from general specifications at a broad enterprise-wide level, the vision for security necessarily has to be top-down. And therefore, mandates a very, very cohesive and comprehensive enterprise-wide security strategy with fundamentally two pillars of security kind of flanking the organization from both ends. The first essentially being at the network level, where detection, blocking, forensics, and response kind of play a very important role on the edge. While on the physical asset by itself, equally detection, blocking, and forensics is equally important. Now, when we heard Rishi Rajpal, Amit Dhawan, and various others speaking, it also transpired that the overall concepts of how data capital are now is such an integral part of organizations, but that simultaneously data, while being able to reside on the cloud, also predominantly resides on localized machines, drives up the importance and significance of security as a basic level practice to a very, very unprecedented level. And therefore, the whole boiling down of the conversation comes down to the fact that if you are looking at a secure, modern, safe enterprise of the future, being able to cater to the demands of customers across sectors, a comprehensive data security strategy integrated and embedded with both physical assets like your endpoint devices as well as on the edge, which is the fundamental network, made real all the more so because of a disrupted environment we are in today, where not everybody has the privilege of being within the firewalls of an organization. And therefore, the integration of security at a very basic level, starting with the physical asset that is provided to employees, contractors, and so on, is an imperative. So that, I think, is what it kind of boils down to. What's your view on this, Shantanu? I am going to, of course, stop sharing here. But what's your view on the take, considering you were listening in very intently over the last 90 minutes?
Well, thank you, Arjun. I think you have spot on summarized this whole concept from the lens of an enterprise business organization perspective. I would love to complement your point of view with what I see as a user experience uh, lens or point of view. So, as a user of say remote working or digital workspace kind of an environment, I would love to see five things in disposable or available to me. Number one, an intelligent device, of course, which is modern, which is lightweight, which has got all the smart elements of AI ML enabled capabilities integrated, built in into it. It's got a long battery power, etc. So the device itself is strong enough, robust enough, high performing to give me the performance and the wherewithal horsepower that I need for diverse type of workloads of
True.
today's digital enterprise.
True.
Secondly, I need the flexibility to work from anywhere. So in a borderless digital collaborative world, the device should give me the flexibility of working from anywhere, be it my home office, be it from a cafe, be it from uh, co-working space, etc. As in when the situation maybe or when I'm on the road traveling. So all possible flexibilities of working from anywhere should be a given thing to me as a user. Number three is, of course, what you rightly pointed out is all aspects of a device and network-centric security to make sure I can do uh, without the blink of an eye all fashions and manners of trusted collaboration. Again, borderless, digital, global, local, with all stakeholders in the ecosystem. Fourth element I would be concerned about is about the simplicity of management. Now, with varying workloads, diverse applications, and of course the intuitive or smart elements of technology embedded into the device itself, I should not get perplexed by the complexity of diverse management platforms or tools or environments. I should still have as much very simplified GUI or UI based management capability and experience, which consumes minimal time from my side as an user for the purpose of management. Last but not the least, number five would be as and when I need support, I should have access to best in class professional uninterrupted
Yes.
hardware, software, device level support so that it should not hamper my productivity, my efficiency, my I shouldn't face any downtime at all, if I may call it that.
So very true. So very
This
true. I think makes sense.
this overall summarizes the perspectives from a user experience standpoint, which a modern day digital workspace user would definitely be eagerly looking for from a solution provider. And the enterprise security point of view combined with the user experience expectations is what I think Dell Technologies is has beautifully crafted as part of their unified workspace solution value prop
Indeed.
offering.
Indeed. And thank you so much, Shantanu. Folks in the audience, that pretty much is what we have time for today. You've been a wonderful audience, and I will hand the floor back to Shantanu, Chief Executive Officer Strategy, for his closing remarks.
Thank you. Thanks. You've been a wonderful audience, all of you today, and I hope you really enjoyed the immersive content and conversation we could bring to you with industry experts as well as subject matter experts from Dell Technologies. We look forward to continue this series with more interactions and sessions in the future. For the time being, as we try to wrap up today's session, there would be a small instruction coming on your screen as to how to fill up the feedback form. Kindly take a couple of minutes of your precious time before you sign off today to fill up the feedback form, give your valuable feedback inputs of what did you like in today's session, what would be some of your expectations of technology or domain knowledge or solution area sets that you would look to expect in future so that we can bring in the right Dell Tech SMEs to you, or we can package in the right content for you for future sessions. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Arjun, for having me in this key takeaway session. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.